Welcome back to the educational series on long-term care planning and insurance. Our second section here is helping you understand what long-term care is versus what people might think it is. Again, my name is Michael Fitzpatrick, and we're going to walk through Long-Term Care Education 101. My main goal is to help make this complex topic much easier for you to understand. The first thing we're going to talk about is the definition of really what long-term care is. So long-term care is assistance, which is help that's provided to someone who has a condition or an illness or some sort of a cognitive impairment that limits their ability to perform normal day-to-day activities of daily living. Activities of daily living is actually something you hear quite a bit when you're researching long-term care. Now, what are they? Well, there's 6 things that we do each and every day on our own that enables us to be considered independent. We bathe, we eat, we get dressed, we toilet, we transfer, which means moving from spot to spot, and we maintain our continence. Now, in the event that you cannot perform 2 out of those 6 things on your own, you now need what's referred to as long-term custodial care. In a separate category by itself is if somebody has a cognitive impairment. This is like Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, things of that nature. You can see over here on the right-hand side we have Katharine Hepburn and Ronald Reagan, Pope John Paul II, Michael J. Fox, really just some folks who have reached the front pages of the media in the last 15 years who have had cognitive impairments. But I bet you we could swap out those 4 pictures with people that we know and love, unfortunately. And these folks really required ultimately more substantial supervision to really protect themselves and other people from any health or safety issues. So whether it's physical or cognitive, your doctor has to certify that your condition is expected to last for at least 90 days in order for it to be considered long-term care. So let's break it down here. Well, when you look at the different levels of care that somebody requires once they need long-term care, you'll see that there's 3 different stages or types. The first type is skilled care. Now, that represents about half of 1% of the needs that the 15 million people who need care right now require on a day in and day out basis. What is skilled care then? Well, skilled care is like open heart surgery or bone marrow transplants or hip replacements. It's not really a big part of long-term care, but you can see that it is part of the pie overall. Now, intermediate care is about 4.5% of these people's needs, day in and day out. What's intermediate care? Well, physical therapy and rehab. So both skilled care and intermediate care are part of long-term care, but really, as you can see, just not a big part at all. So custodial care is really what long-term care is. So custodial care is what we just covered. It's helping people with activities of daily living or supervising somebody with a cognitive impairment. Now, why is that important? Well, when you look at health insurance as a starting point, and then we'll talk about Medicare, as it relates to skilled care, which again is not what we're talking about too much, but as it relates to skilled care, you're covered for up to the first 100 days, and then after that, we're on our own. Now, for intermediate care, physical therapy and rehab, you're generally covered between 45 and 60 days per occurrence per year for that type of care. And then after that, we're on our own. And then for custodial care, it's just not a covered service as part of health insurance. So it's not like health insurance does a bad job paying for long-term care. They just really weren't designed to cover longevity as an issue. Now, when you get into Medicare, Medicare is something you get when you turn age 65. As long as you paid into the system for 40 quarters, which is 10 years, you've basically bought yourself an entitlement program called Medicare, which can basically be broken down into medical care. Now, you can see at the bottom here that Medicare does not pay for any custodial care. In fact, if you don't believe me, let's just look at a Social Security statement that people get 3 months before their birthday every single year. On the back left-hand side, top left-hand paragraph, it basically says Medicare does not pay for long-term care. So you may want to consider options for private insurance. I point this out to you because a lot of baby boomers that are surveyed believe that health insurance or Medicare are going to pay for their long-term care needs. And right here it tells us blatantly that it does not. So let's look at some of the length of claims that people have and some of the costs that are involved. Well, one of the misconceptions that people have is, long-term care might only be for a year or 2, and they're thinking about nursing homes only. And the fact of the matter is that a nursing home is the last place that people may end up needing care. In fact, most people receive care at home, as we talked about in video number 1, and or assisted living, and then may make it to a nursing home. So when you look at an actual claim, quote unquote, it's the length of time that somebody requires care from when they first need it until they pass away or when they stop needing care. So on average, it's about 5.5 years for women and about 4 years for men. Now, leading right into that, let's talk about some of the costs. And in today's day and age, this is in 2013, the average home care agency or home care provider could charge about $20 to $25 per hour. So if you needed somebody for half a day for a year, you're talking close to $90,000 worth of care at home. Then you have assisted living facilities. These costs could actually get higher and higher as your care needs increase while you're there. Then we have adult daycare, drop off and pick up day by day. And then you have nursing homes. Now this number actually is closer to $300 per day in some areas, which is over $100,000 per year. But the fact of the matter is that if you were to need long-term care today, it's going to cost you somewhere between $70,000 and $100,000 per year, and the average person is going to need care for about 3 to 4 to 5 years. Now the biggest problem though is that we've seen these costs increasing between 4 and 5% every year for the last 30 years. So at that rate, let's just say for argument's sake that somebody needed care today, and all of a sudden they would need $200 per day for the next 4 years. That's $292,000 coming from their assets to pay for care. But what if it wasn't today? What if it was 15 years from now? Well, that same care, just because of inflation, is going to cost closer to $400 per day. So if you needed care for 4 years, you're talking somewhere close to $600,000 out of pocket. And what if it wasn't 15 years from now, but it was closer to 25 or 30 years from today? That same care is going to cost closer to $800 per day. And for 4 years, it would cost about $1.2 million out of pocket. Who has that kind of money set aside to pay for their care? That's part of the issue that we're dealing with. So we've covered the issue of longevity already, and then we just talked about what long-term care is versus what it's not. Next 3 pieces you're going to get are understanding what your options are to pay for this kind of care, and how do you customize the insurance, and then we're going to talk about some sample costs and premiums. So hope the second video was helpful for you, and we'll see you on video 3. Thanks.